Hey everybody, I'm Dr. Wyrick, and welcome to this particular video, which we're going to get into today. People ask me a lot about how does the lab, what's the process of actually getting the sample to the lab, extracting the stem cells, shipping them to our office, and then injecting them. So that's what today's video is. The last video that I shared with you, I promised you, was the most boring video that I've ever done, and I think I kept that promise. Today's video is going to be the second most boring video that I've ever done, because we do get into some minute details here. But stick with me for a few minutes and we're going to go through this process. So how are these cells collected? It starts before the child is actually born. The mom consents to donate the tissue that would otherwise be discarded. And when we're talking about the tissue, we're not just talking about the umbilical cord, but we're talking about the placenta and everything else that's involved with that. She donates all of that material. And she consents to do that. Once she consents, then the donors, who include the mother and the father, are then screened for any history of communicable diseases or behavioral risks. That way we can eliminate the risks of some of the infectious diseases, because if they're present, then they cannot be used for these purposes. Lastly, the blood test. There is a blood test that is required within 7 days, either before or after the birth, to make sure that nothing communicable is there and there's no red flags, which would eliminate the ability to donate that tissue. And that does include Rh factor, among other AB blood types, for example, cannot donate, but those are what are tested for right there before or after the birth. Right after the baby's born is the next step. That's when the tissue that's donated are procured, and they're collected from these full-term live healthy births, and they are collected by that collection is performed by a licensed medical professional who is trained specifically to collect that particular tissue. Right after that, the lab collects them. They're sent to the lab via overnight shipping, and they're processed out by that lab. And what will happen is, if that tissue shows up 48 hours after the birth, unfortunately that particular tissue is rejected. The lab then cleans the tissue. They sanitize it, make sure that everything's clean and safe there. And then all those tissue samples are handled utilizing aseptic protocols to minimize the contamination of that particular tissue. So processing involves each tissue is actually recorded and separated into individual lots. That way, lot 1, lot 2, lot 3, your particular injection will come from a very specific lot that can be traced. Those lots are then processed into the final product. For us, that means that's going to be stem cells coming from, the mesenchymal stem cells coming from the umbilical cord. Then they are frozen. So once the tissue has been processed, cryopreservation begins through the slow freezing process, and then the cells are stored in a cryo tank at 196 degrees. Once they are frozen, that's when they are quarantined. Those quarantines, they will be in quarantine for about 3 weeks. During that time, each one of those lots, there's a sample that's sent to a third-party lab to check for sterility, to make sure there's nothing in there that's going to cause an infectious disease later down the road. Once they pass through that quarantine and through that testing, then they are released into stock. So a sterility and secondary donor test for each lot must be completed and authorized by the lab's medical director. Once it's authorized, the lot is released into inventory. Basically means that lot is released to be able to be sold by the labs to be injected. So they're still on cryopreservation. Shipping involves overnight shipping. So when we have you scheduled for your injection, we'll order the cells. Once we order the cells, they are shipped to us via FedEx overnight, who, by the way, is never here at 10:30. They're always late, always an hour late, so we always order the day before. But that's okay, because we have a cryo tank here in our office. We have a liquid nitrogen tank. Once we get those cells, we put them on liquid nitrogen, and we can store them dang near indefinitely. We don't like to store them for more than about a week, but we do have the capability if we wanted to. But once our clinic has received the product, it has to be used or immediately placed in liquid nitrogen storage, which is what we do, and then we can keep those around until we need to use them. So that's when injection day comes. Hey, the previous picture I showed you, that is the actual tank in our office. This picture is my dad's injection day, which was almost a year to the date, and he's still doing fantastically well. But once injection day gets here, then our staff will thaw the product according to the training that we've received. We thaw the product, and then the cells are injected as determined by the licensed healthcare professional. So our nurse practitioner is the one who actually makes the final decision on where to go, how to inject it, and he or she is the one that actually performs the injection. So there you go. That's the process of getting them from the donor to our office to the injection. Again, second most boring video I've ever made. We tried to liven it up a little bit. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you on the next video. Thank you.